everyone, I'm Gweakles and today I'm going to be doing a special review video. Now, the folks over at Evergreen Art Supply asked me to review one of their products and I got to pick their watercolor pencils, and this is really exciting because I've actually wanted to try watercolor pencils for a while, and I have, but at the cheaper store brand, I think it was the Gweakles Art Supply, and they weren't bad, they were just not very vibrant in color, so I'm really excited to be able to test these out and get into these. So let's take a look at what Evergreen Art Supplies are made of. Okay, so Evergreen Art Supply has sent me their premium watercolor pencils in their 36-piece set, and this is artist grade. Now I can tell already that based on the packaging, it looks like this may have come undone a little bit, probably during the post, so I'm sure this is through no fault of their own. This is typical tin that pencils come in, but probably, like, I don't know if they didn't send it to me in a box because I'm doing a review for them and this is not sponsored at all, or if they just aren't used to it yet. But Evergreen, if you're listening, you might want to make sure that your tins are properly packaged, or else you're going to see this kind of bendage, and this is basically what I'm opening it up to, which is probably not a good display of the supplies that you want to be shown. But I'm just going to move this out like this. Again, the post, the mail, you know, they are never very kind to mailing out many things, but you can see if I close it, still very good. Your stuff should stay fine. The postman probably just bent this and wasn't very careful, but I'm glad that none of the pencils are broken, which is great. Right off the bat, you can see that I have a fairly interesting selection of colors. A lot of them are very, they're a little dark. I could probably see the variation better if they were lined up how they were supposed to be. But I'm surprised there's a lot of warm colors and almost no cool colors at all. I could see a little bit of like some teals and some blues and a little bit of purples, but most of these are fairly warm colors and a lot of variations on orange and red. The pencils are shaped like kind of like a triangle, so they're not round, so if you go to set your pencils down, they're going to stay in place. They're not going to roll around in comparison to, okay, so this is a Prismacolor colorist pencil and this is like a hexagon. So you see how they're kind of, they'll roll around a little bit, but they steady themselves, they stay. Whereas if you have, I'm trying to find, I should have thought about this before, but if you have a normal round pencil, that's going to roll off your desk. So that's very good. So you can have a couple of pencils on the desk, set them next to you, and they're not going to go anywhere. They are coming as if they are partially sharpened. This is not very good, as this on one side it is, the other side isn't. I don't really care. I'm not an art snob. I'm just reviewing this honestly for you guys in the appearance that I got it. The rest of the pencils look like they're okay to me. This is just one odd pencil, and that could be because of the wood, and you know, pencils never really sharpen the way you want them to. The first thing I'm going to do before I test, I'm going to draw a piece for you, but the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to use the Canson watercolor sketchbook. It is 7 by 10 inches and it is 140 pounds, in case you're wondering. I'm going to test out some colors. I'm going to just test the pencils on its colors really quick for you. I'm trying to find something unimportant, like some practice sketches. So let's see. The first thing I'm going to test is I want a bright color. So I'm going to pick, let's go with this red right here. This is It doesn't tell you what red it is. It just says Evergreen Watercolor, which, you know, once again, I'm not like an art snob. I'm just here to review their pieces for them. But I guess if you do have, let's say, a piece that you have a bunch of warm colors that you're using, and you forgot which one you were using, and you had trouble distinguishing between these two, maybe it would be helpful to have a name or a number to distinguish the colors for yourself, so you can remember, oh, this is my favorite red and it's carmine red, or it is cadmium red, and so on and so forth. Now I'm just going to take a little scrap piece of paper and use this brighter red, and I'm going to sharpen that for us. To get an idea, I'm going to use the larger sharpener. As you can imagine, because it is a triangle, it is difficult to sharpen, but I didn't puff any pieces out. The lead is staying in nicely, which is good, so it's not going to just chew down a pencil for you and then you've wasted all your money and you haven't even been able to use your pencil. So I'm just going to test the pencil out. It's dry as I would expect because it's, you know, it's going to turn into water, but I want not to turn into water. It's going to be, the pigment is going to spread. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water. This is a Utrecht watercolor pencil, This is a Utrecht round brush, and this is a 6. And I'm just going to add a little bit of water. And unfortunately, that kind of is very watery and no pigment at all. I'll try it again with this. And that's a little bit better of a result. Once again, more watery. Let's see if another way to use watercolor pencils is to actually pull the pigment right from the pencils and paint. Much better. So the pigment's there. Perhaps I need to pull a better brush stroke or lay down the pencil a little better. It could take, you know, a special stroke or just playing with it, which I'll do in just a second. But yeah, so that is that's not a bad pigment at all. That is what you would expect from a student grade watercolor first wash. But I'm going to start a little sketch and then make a full little piece with this and give it a full review. Okay, so I've chosen my subject. It's getting really close to September, or October. It is September now, and it's getting spooky out, so I want to draw a spooky werewolf, and I'm using one of the pencils. I selected just a range of color palette with like a couple of warm and a couple of cool colors. I did find that while I was trying to select my palette that there really aren't a large variety of colors. As you can see here, a lot of the colors are basically, some of them, there isn't much difference. In a few, they appear to be like a carbon copy of one or the other. And I'm not, once again, I'm not trying to diss, I'm giving a completely honest review so that they can improve and so you guys know what you're getting into. This isn't bad. A lot of I can't talk today, sorry, work's been crazy. There was a hurricane earlier this week, so I am completely gone. A lot of watercolor or just colored pencils or art sets in general. I will do that to you as far as variation and color palettes. Sometimes you will get things like doubles or the same sort of color, but in a different, you know, a pencil, and it's 1 or 2 shades lighter than the other. Oh, something that I need to test that I haven't yet is how well these erase. And I can't believe that I didn't try this yet, but since I have messed up, or this isn't going where I want it to, I'm gonna take this kneaded eraser. And it erases really nice. And I am drawing very lightly so that I can, which is what you want to do anyways. But that's great. That's definitely what I want to see, that it erases really nicely. Let's see. I'll just do a portrait so I really don't have to worry much on it. It sketches nicely. It is a little bit chalky, but that's to be expected. Once again, because it's relying, you know, its function is that you're going to pull from its pigment later on. So naturally, it's going to be a little chalky. But that does make it more difficult to sketch. So maybe if you don't like, you know, the drag of the sketch, perhaps you should sketch it out in a regular pencil first, and then you come back later with the watercolor pencils. But it's very similar to sketching with any other colored pencil, save for the chalky bit. But I'm just gonna, I'll speed this up, and then if I come across anything during the sketch process that I need to talk to you guys about, I will let you know. But until then, I'll speed this up a little bit so you can get to the colors. Okay, so now I'm laying in the colors because I think I'm going to work on this in sections because I think that's going to give us the most successful review. I'm not pressing hard. I'm just going in circular motions, making sure I get a full lather of pigment on there. And as you can see, it's quite luminescent. And this is, I would not say this is an accurate representation of the color. So it's probably best, but I found that, you know, a lot of color pencils is like that, so it's probably best to like make a mark on the side and see what it's really going to look like. But this could be what it looks like after you add color. I'm not sure if I can do another layer, like add water to this and then add it again and then add water on top of that. Probably not. The best thing to do is blend all your colors to achieve everything that you want if you want to mix your colors. So like if I want to work on this whole eye and add in some variant colors, I need to blend right now. I could probably go back in with these pencils and draw on top of it, but as far as adding water once again, probably not a good idea. So once again, circular motion, so you don't see any lines. And there's a nice build of pigment there. To get the look that I'm going for. I'm gonna add in a little bit excuse me, this brownish color. Okay, so let's add a little bit of water to that and see what it does. I'm not gonna add too much, just a little bit. And that is a nice bit of pigment. And obviously I would like to follow the direction of like my lines. If I do it too much or add too much water, the pigment is obviously going to lift. You can see it doing it right there. So you've probably got a small variant if you are laying that down of time. It doesn't stay. It might actually be best for me to ink this and then add some color and then put in the water. I'm so sorry. But I'm not using a whole lot of water here. I'm just dipping the brush in, wiping the excess off, and it is lifting it, so you do want to use a generous portion. And then I will do a close-up so you can see. So as you can see, my lines have flattened out, but you can see where the water pulls. I could probably do a better application at wetting and pulling the pigment right from the pencil and then adding it on top. But in my opinion, if I'm going to be using these pencils, that kind of defeats the purpose, because if I'm using the pencils if only to clean up my work with the brush later, then it kind of defeats the purpose of why I would want to only use the brush to apply the water in the first place. So another way I'm going to test this is I'm going to take the Pentel pocket brush pen and I'm going to ink this, let that dry, add in my pigment, and then add water. So I'm not necessarily so worried about maintaining my shapes or my lines with the colors instead of, you know, I'm sure if you had the practice in, and I don't have the practice in with the pencils and building, obviously this is my first time using these, but I would like to review them in any which situation given that I would paint or make a piece. So I'm going to ink this really quick. so now that the ink is dry, I'm going to go in and start adding the pigment. And I'm just going to work in layers. I'm probably going to do light to dark, just like I would normal watercolor painting process for me. I work light to dark. It's pretty much the only way you can layer, obviously. But I'm working in circles instead of lines, so you don't get that weird thing where you see like the space in between, or so one side won't have more pigment than another. And I'm just gonna add little touches of color here and there, and then blend them together and see how well the pigment keeps after I add the water again. So as you guys can see, I went along and I colored the rest of our friend here and layered accordingly. And so now I'm going to add a little bit of water to see how it reacts. And as you can see, they blend very nice. And I added a little bit more texture or liney, grainy sort of area where I want it to be kind of haggardy. Again, you don't have to do that. If you want smooth smooth blending, then I obviously suggest you work in a circular motion. But just so you know, I am dipping my brush in here and dabbing off the excess. Never you mind my dirty brush, water brush. So, thus far it's picking up the most pigment. It's either picking up the last pigment that I laid down or the thickest. And I am losing my build. So it kind of mixed them all together, which on one hand, you know, is what you would expect for for trying to watercolor on top of something, but once you've blended it out, with all of those, with all that time, realistically, you don't want, realistically, you don't want to lose that. So I'm just trying to work around that by laying down some color, laying down some water, dabbing my brush on a washcloth, and then see where it changes here. I'm going to dab it again so my brush remains wet, but so like I'm not gonna move from this red into this blue. I did the red first and I'm going back, and then I'll push it now, but see how I just lifted that up? That is not what you want. So in terms of using this, ooh, that's nice. The colors that I used for his teeth are actually bleeding out onto the blues and the reds. So I was gonna roll with that. In terms of covering a whole piece with this and layering, I would say do not. And then I'm not sure if this is for like all watercolor pencils in general. Again, I'm doing this for you guys so you know what to do and expect when it comes to making pieces with this. And I'm trying to give you the fairest, most honest evaluation possible. But as you can see, pigment is bright. Did wash away a little bit. Would probably be a little brighter, so let's say I go back in with just the pigment to add some detail that I might have lost while it's still wet. You know, just another option. Playing around with it a little bit. And then, again, I'm also not, you know, my brush is just wet. I'm not coating it with water by any means. So let's say I want to go back in and add this reddish brown. It gave me my little tint of blending into the fur. Kind of sucks because I spent all that time blending it with the pencil. So maybe the watercolor pencils in general would be better as a finishing move on top of a piece that you had already started, instead of using it for a full feature piece. But you can see that the pigment is very nice, all on its own. And I had fun making this little mess today. If you do too much, just like with normal watercolors, you can lift back up what you've done. And I'll let that dry before touching it again. So zoomed in, you can see the variation in textures that I got, which is cool in and of itself, I think. You know, something different. So now that this is dry, I could probably go back in with the pencils and do a little bit more editing and detail work, making little bits of blending here and there. But again, after already doing this once before, it's kind of sorry, my dog's very thirsty in the background. It doesn't really, obviously it doesn't go on the same way it did before, because I have a layer of pencil and then water and then pigment, so that buildup is a little bit difficult. It pulled my ink a little bit, which is to be expected with the water that I added. There we go. Add a little bit of that back. But all in all, the pencils functioned as I would have expected. I would have liked to see a little bit more variation in color, especially for a 36 color set. Maybe some labeling on the pencils so that we might know what we are gonna get out of it, or you know, to better help us as artists. And as far as laying down color, the pigment is there, it's solid. You can definitely use this for detail work. So let's say you paint your whole piece and then you want to go back in with a colored pencil to just get a little area and build it back on top. Obviously these are going to require you to work with them and really get used to them, just like any other medium in art. But I think this would be a very good idea for a beginner set, or someone just starting out. I don't think this would hurt at all. I like that they don't go anywhere on my desk, and I think they were overall pleasant to work with. But I will leave a link down in the description below for you to see Evergreen Art Supply's store link and where you can get these colored pencils if you are interested. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative, and I hope I did it justice. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time.